Hello everyone, my name is Chrissy and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing my December 2020 wrap up. I read 8 books for this month and most of them are romance and about half of them are from one author in particular. But I did read 8 books, so I'm very proud of myself. So let's jump into it. The first book I read is A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. This features a character named Naledi, who is a grad student trying to get a degree in epidemiology so that she can really help to change the world. However, she keeps getting these weird emails that say that she's engaged to this prince from this country she hasn't heard of before, and she automatically thinks this is a scam. They're just trying to get the little money that I have, so no, sir, we're not doing that. And she just keeps deleting these emails. Well, it turns out the emails are true, and the assistant to the prince who she's engaged to has been emailing her to try and get more information to find her and, reunite the engaged couple. Well, Naledi doesn't remember any of this because when she was little, around 4 or 5 years old, her parents had made this agreement for her to be engaged to Prince Thabiso. Unfortunately, her parents died in the United States after they left their country for reasons that they didn't really share with anyone else. And they ended up dying in a car accident, and Naledi went into the foster care system in the United States. So, unfortunately, Naledi jumped around foster homes and does not remember really her life before that. Now, Prince Thabiso wants to find Naledi to try and get information about why her parents left the country and why they left the US and also why they're not honoring their engagement, right? He finds Naledi, but Naledi thinks that Thabiso is this coworker that she has that she's supposed to train, and his name's Jamal. So she thinks Thabiso's Jamal, and Thabiso, instead of just telling her the truth, decides, let's just go with it. Try get like subterfuge information or something along those lines. It's kind of weird his reasoning for that, but he ends up lying to Naledi, and thus you have A Princess in Theory, the main plot point. I like Alyssa Cole's writing and I like her romances. I like that Naledi is a really strong character who does have a lot of misgivings about starting relationships and being in them because, she was treated really bad in the past. But she is also a very ambitious and she's also a very kind person too. So I like the fullness of the main character. I also loved the lengths that Thabiso would go to just so that Naledi would not find out who he was. I just thought that was pretty funny and entertaining, the scenarios that he put himself into. So overall, I really like this book, with exception to the last half of the book. It's not that I didn't enjoy the last half, but I do feel like it could have been either split into a whole nother book to cover all the plot lines that were happening, or at the very least, it should have been lengthened out so that we could get a little bit more closure with some of the plot lines that happened. The next book I read is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is the sequel to The Poppy War, and Rin, who is the main character, is still making bad decisions. So for those who don't know what The Poppy War is and what the trilogy is about, it's pretty much a high fantasy that deals with a lot of military aspects and deals with war. Poppy War. It's really, really good. Very fast paced, so if you like your fantasy at a lower pace, this may not be for you. But if you like a really fast paced high fantasy book where it's not gonna, explain a tree for 10 pages, then this will work out. This is a very good book. I heavily recommend it. Do be aware that since this does deal with war, there's a lot of trigger warnings that you should be aware of, including but not limited to torture, sexual assault, experimenting on many people's religious dogmas that happen, and everything. Just everything. The next book I read is Devil in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is the third book in the Ravenelle series, and it is a historical romance series set in about Regency times, I think like mid to late 1800s. But it deals with my favorite character of the Ravenelles, Pandora Ravenelle, who is trying to be her best, to be an entrepreneur, and she just wants to make a board game She just wants to sell that board game, and she just wants to make enough money so she doesn't have to rely on getting a husband in order to be independent. That was not the right phrasing I wanted to go with, because when in that time frame, having a husband does not make you independent at all. You get my drift. She wants to not have to be reliant on someone else. Unfortunately for Pandora, because she decided to go to this ball that was happening with her sister, she ends up getting caught into this scandalous position with this guy named Gabriel St. Vincent. He's just trying to help her out from being stuck in this like seat thing, and Pandora is like almost flipped upside down because she was trying to get this thing that was stuck between a seat and a wall, and she gets stuck like as if like in a handstand. The visuals are kind of weird when it's described, but anyway, they get caught in this compromising position because he's just trying to help her out, and there is a scandal, and the scandal pretty much dictates that they need to get married in order to not be ruined, or Pandora not be ruined, because really, who cares if a dude gets caught in a scandalized position? Unfair. At any rate, Pandora really doesn't want to get married, and her cousin, who is the lord of the estate and who is the head of the Ravenels, he is not going to force her to get married. So really, it's about Pandora and Gabriel figuring out what they want to do and the steps that they want to take, whether or not they think it's worth pursuing a relationship and getting married, and that kind of thing. It's my favorite Ravenel book thus far. I really like Pandora as a character. There is rarely a main character who is quirky and kind of weird, but who has ambition and does understand that she has to follow certain etiquette rules in order to get by with her peers, but at the same time still wants to be quirky and the strange person that she is. So I really appreciated Pandora's character because I don't really see a character like her very much in romances. The next book I read is Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. This is the first book in the Wallflower series that takes place before the Ravenel series, and there's certain characters from the Wallflower series that make an appearance in the Ravenel series, which is why I decided to read the Wallflower series to begin with. At any rate, this book features a character named Annabelle, who is getting a little bit up there in age as far as marriageability. She's about 28, and I guess in around that time period, that's like a smidgen closer to spinsterhood than anyone really wants to be. So Annabelle is just a little bit at her wit's end of what to do because she needs a husband in order to be financially secure. Her family's not very rich, and they're going through some really dire straits, so getting a husband who has money would fix a lot of that. So, Annabelle, in a stroke of genius, decides to befriend 3 other ladies who are also having trouble with landing a man. And so she says, hey, let's be friends, let's have an alliance, and let's try and trap these gentlemen into marriage. And the other ladies, Lillian, Evie, and Daisy, all say, yes ma'am, let's do that. And it's a great showcase of friendship, by the way. I love female friendships, and I was so glad I got to read this book because great female friendships throughout the whole series, really. But anyway, Annabelle does end up catching the eye of one guy named Simon Hunt, who is the other lead in this book. And she doesn't particularly like him, so she's like pushing him off and going towards one other guy. But she is attracted to Simon, but she doesn't want to say that. So there's this kind of back and forth and push and pull with Simon and Annabelle. Lisa Kleypas has got her hook into me as far as these series goes because I just really like them. They're just really entertaining. I like that we get to see a character who has to be practical, but at the same time does have wants, needs, and desires, but she has to weigh that between what is going to be useful to her in the future versus, what's going to make her happy. I really just like those kind of plot points because it's so, that's very true to life to that time period, or at least I think so. I don't know. I'm not a historian, so that's a really wide statement I'm making. but it seems like that would be something that you'd have to really think about during that time period. The next book is Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas. And this is actually the third book in the Wallflower series because I could not get the second book right away. I had to put it on hold, and I didn't want to wait to see a specific character in the Devil in Winter. So I just read Devil in Winter before the second book in the series. So Devil in Winter features a gal named Evie, who is one of the Wallflowers, one of the gals that strikes up a alliance with Annabelle. And she makes a proposition to this guy named St. Vincent, Sebastian St. Vincent. And she says, I know you have money troubles, so I'll marry you if you help me get away from my abusive family. Because she's staying with her aunts and uncles who are not very nice to her and, in fact, kind of beat her on the regular. And so she wants to get away from them, understandably. And the way to do that is to get a husband who can protect her. So she inquires after Sebastian. Well, Sebastian, because he's a little bit desperate, says, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's just get married. And so they go and get married. And the plot is really just about them coming to terms and loving each other and learning about each other. While this is not my favorite Wallflower book, I still think it's really solid in its plot, and I like Evie as a character. I thought that she's just a really good show of silent force. Like, she has a stutter, she doesn't really like talking to people, she finds it really hard to be in social situations, but she does find strength to keep running away from her abusive family and to, do her best to be as independent as she can and to see her father who's ill and dying. So I just thought that as far as character goes, the Wallflowers is kind of hitting it out of the park for me as far as characterizations. The next book I read is one of my favorites of the year, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I got this from a friend of mine named Star. Thank you so much, Star. It is one of my favorite reads. Oh, it's so good. It features a character named January who is a romance writer who kind of loses her idea of romance because she finds out after her father passes away that her father cheated on her mom, had an affair. And so in her father's will, he left her a beach house. And so she goes to the beach house because, one, she's running out of money to really pay for her own place, so she needs a place to stay. And for two, she has to find out what she's going to do with it, if she's going to stay or if she's going to sell it. Her main idea is to sell the beach house right away if she can. So she's trying to, go through everything that's in the house to get it ready for sale. Well, she ends up next to this other author named Augustus Everett, and he is a literary fiction writer, and they kind of clash just a little bit. And they end up having a deal with one another to try and write in each other's genres. And it's a great book. It's really good. It has a lot of heart to it. It goes through the full range of emotions. There's times I was laughing my butt off reading this book. And there's times I was just really incredibly sad for January and also Augustus for the situations they were in and the hard times they were going through. Solid read. I actually think this is a great beginning into romance because it does get into literary fiction, and that's probably the main idea of this whole book, but it's such a good book. Read it, please. Go. Talk with me about it after you read it. The next book I read is It Happened One Autumn by Lisa Kleypas. This is the second book in the Wallflower series, which features Lillian Bowman, who is an American heiress, who is trying to land herself a husband because her parents really just want her to be part of England nobility. So Lillian actually doesn't really care that much about getting a husband, but at the same time she wants to stay in England, so she knows that she has to go through the motions of all of it. Lillian ends up at this Earl's house, and his name's Westcliff. I think he's an Earl. But he is like the most eligible bachelor, and him and Lillian don't get along whatsoever. They fight all the time, and that fighting leads to attraction. It's a type of enemies to lovers plotline, and it's my favorite out of the Wallflower series so far. I really liked the chemistry between Westcliff and Lillian, and just their interactions were really funny. The fact that their personalities actually match really well together, it's just getting past those misinformations with each other. So the misunderstandings that they had between each other. The last book I read for December is Everything She Ever Wanted by Ann Rule. This is a true crime book about obsession, love, murder, betrayal. Really, though, it's about this gal who tries to manipulate situations and ends up getting people killed for money. That's that's her primary motivation, or at least that's how it seems to be her primary motivation to manipulating all these people and to trying to, um, move them like chess pieces in order to get the life that she wants, which is one of a lot of money. Ann Rule is a really talented writer. I will say that the first part of the book, so about the first third, wasn't as intriguing as the last two thirds of the book. So it was a little bit slow going, but once I hit into kind of the big intrigues of the true crime story, oh, I was hooked. It's a good read. I did hear that there's a Lifetime series about it, so I have to find out how to watch it because I want to see it. I want to see it acted out. I just have to at this point. So those are the books that I read for December. Have you read any of these books? What did you think about them? If you have read them, based on these books that I talked about, are there any books that you suggest that I read next? By all means, please comment down below. And as always and forever, may you get lost in the book.